Good morning, Power hitters. Today is Tuesday, the second month of the year, the 22nd day of that second month in the year 2022. My name is Jarrett McAllister, your mentor and co-host, alongside my awesome, amazing friend, Jonathan Brunasso. How are you doing, my brother?
Good morning, Jarrett. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here. Happy 2/22/22. It's one of the only dates you could say backwards. You could flip it upside down, and it's the second day of the week. It's Tuesday. It's just an interesting day. So
it is a Tuesday, and at some point today, it's going to be 2:22 p.m., which crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, let's hey, I know we have a jam-packed, exciting training today. So let's just jump right into some success stories. Right off the bat, I just want to give a shout out to Gabe Leal, who was a mentee, tagged me on a Sonova project. We got it closed, installed just this past week. So awesome, great job, Gabe.
Nice.
Knock that out.
I'll just do a quickie shout out to Brent Slover on this call. Him and I closed a deal together. We actually both were introduced to this homeowner. I also closed the neighbor. He took the initiative to close another neighbor. So we literally have 3 homes on the same street, and these 2 are mega influencers. So when they do it, the whole street does it. So shout out to Brent Slover. He's a new mentor on the team. His fiance, Cynthia Alvidrez, kicks ass. So good job to you, Brent, for that.
She is on Cynthia's team, right?
He is. Yeah, he is.
I mean, he is. Yeah.
Yeah. But we'd love to hear another shout out, maybe a new teammate, a new deal, a new lead.
Yes, I would like.
Yes.
I would like to introduce my new consultant, Ivan Dixon, who joined us recently Thursday after hearing the blitz call from Ed Ayala and JC Rangel. Welcome, Ivan.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. I'm excited.
Very great. Cool. Thank you, Lily, and welcome, Ivan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone like to share a quick success story with us?
Yeah, same here, Jonathan. This is Luis Perez. I want to welcome our new team member as well, Israel, who's on the call. He actually went solar with us, and now he's a consultant and ready to go full on with Powur. Welcome, Israel.
Welcome.
Luis Perez, Spanish-speaking California mentor, kicking butt, building a team. Congrats to you, Luis. You're always on the top 10, top 20 charts. So proud to have you on the team. Nice work.
And I don't know if he's on the call, but Zach Haynes, I believe, crushed 4 deals this past week. Just saw him in the top 10 as far as sales go for the company. So shout out to my man, Zach Haynes. Great job, brother.
Very cool. I'm sure we have a ton of success stories, but we'll keep things rolling, everyone. And just to back up for a second, this is a Power Hitters collaboration weekly team training every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. These videos do get recorded and put on my YouTube. All are welcome. It's one team. You know, JC has a training. Tom Cotter has a Monday training. So we have a lot of resources for the team that we're more than welcome to share. So everyone is welcome. And I will just share in the chat that if you do want to use any of the mentors on this team, like Jarrett, like Brent, like Cynthia, like Luis Perez, all the great ones, feel free to use this document. It'll show you their location, their states, their certifications, their distance they travel, their calendar link. And I encourage all the leaders out there to go ahead and make a list of your mentors just like this as well. All right, thank you, Jarrett, for kicking things off like always, and your leadership and your idea to do these trainings. So appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Let's keep it going here. I have a few quick announcements and we'll get right to today's training. So we have our training today, obviously. We're going to talk about enterprise, and then at 12 p.m. today, Solar Sales Tuesday, powercalendar.com, Kiara Smithy, a great mentor on the team, will be doing that training today. So look out for that. And always every week we have Enphase, REC, Sunlight, SolarEdge, Sonova doing office hours on powurcalendar.com. So make sure to check those out. This Thursday, if you're newer here, please take an onboarding at 12 p.m. or 5 p.m. Pacific. And then this Saturday, let me back up for a second. This Saturday, JC Rangel in Southern California will be doing an in-person Super Solar Saturday. It's going to be at a nice event venue in a hotel there, some coffee and croissants. And he's going to tell you how he built one of the fastest growing teams, how he's on the top of the charts in the company all of last year, top recruiter, top mentor. We're going to be doing these monthly moving forward in California with a collaboration of leaders. So please stay tuned for that. And then next Tuesday, Jarrett McAllister is going to be on here talking with some top performers, teaching you how to close deals and how to price deals. You need to know your local market. You need to know your competitors. You need to know what margin to be at, what for loan, what for cash, super important. Following Tuesday, we have a roofer and mentor, Jason Reedy, will be teaching us on Texas. Following Tuesday, an amazing gentleman, Scott Crum from Fresno with years and years of experience will be teaching us. 2 weeks after that, Brenton Schultz, ops manager, mostly California, will be training us on operations. And after that, we have Julian Todd, a YouTube expert on solar panels, teaching us specifics on panels and how to overcome the competition and pick the right panel. Tons of value for you guys every Tuesday, much more on powurcalendar.com. And of course, the Freedom Tour is going on right now. We have Vegas this weekend. We have Carolinas. We have Florida. So much more. JC and I did discuss, there's just so much going on now through July. We're going to be doing a Mentor Factory 2.0 in Vegas, probably towards the end of the year, more October or so. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, build into the Freedom events. And of course, Dallas, July 15th and 16th. You all got the newsletter yesterday. Make sure to read it. It does talk about the Dallas in-person 2-day event, which I intend to be there with all the biggest California teams. I can't wait to see you guys there. And,
JB, people are trying to get in, but it's locked out.
Okay,
100.
appreciate it. Let me take a quick look there. Give me 1 second. And in the meantime, this is the Freedom Tour that I was mentioning. So we do have Vegas this Thursday. I'll be there with Larry McKinney and a few other leaders. And then Saturday, we're going to build into the Super Solar Saturday. So if you guys want to invite anyone in Vegas at all, I'll be there. Have them say hi to me, Larry McKinney, all the other leaders in Vegas this Thursday and this Saturday. And then March 5th, guys, in Florida is going to be huge. So you definitely want to invite into that. You're going to have Edgardo and JC Rangel doing the training in Florida March 5th. So I would definitely build into these events and all the Freedom Tour events as well. And I'm probably going to hand it off to Charles here in a second and then go pay for the large room attendance. But
pay for the year, man. Just pay for the year.
Yeah, I thank you, Charles. Appreciate it.
You're making that money. Come on.
Yeah. So today's training, ladies and gentlemen, is obviously on enterprise. Charles Thompson, thank you for being here today and taking the time to do this training. Enterprise, of course, is very important. I think it's going to 5x, 10x our business, allow us to recruit teams and dealers and companies and businesses and roofers and brokerages into Powur with an additional suite of offerings and value proposition that is huge. And it's already showing a lot of growth for Powur. So I'm pretty excited today to have this training. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Charles Thompson to continue the conversation on enterprise, talk a little bit about what it is, why we're doing it, and then get into some specifics. I'm sure we'll have a lot of Q&A towards the end.
Yep. I think that's really the biggest goal, is to make sure that we get all your questions answered. I'm gonna give you some highlights, some overviews. And Jonathan, if you can set me up on the screen share one as a co-host so I can screen share, that would be awesome. And thanks for having me, because ultimately the goal here is to make sure you're fully informed on what the enterprise program is and isn't. And relatively, I think most people have got it already, but there's these little nuances that come up. So I'm going to share my screen in a moment and walk you through something that I just got finished recording on Friday. I'm expecting that video to be back in our hands probably Wednesday or Thursday. So tomorrow, the next day. In the meantime, inside the knowledge base, there is a existing video that I did on enterprise, more directed towards us as sellers, but then another one that you can share with prospects. So let me pull this up here and show you what was just recorded based upon questions and feedback that I've received over this period of time. I won't do the whole presentation because you'll be able to get the video, but I want to walk you through what we've done and why we've done this. And there's going to be a whole different suite of assets coming out within the next 30 days. This is moving so fast, it's blowing my mind. But the challenge that I started to face is people got into enterprise, but they didn't understand what cost of goods was. So then we're sending them two videos. We're sending them one on cost of goods, and then we're sending them one on enterprise. So what I tried to do here in this next round is to incorporate who is Powur, Powur being a platform, Powur, walk through our economic model, kind of like the Monday Power Hour, but really geared towards that. So we're not a solar company, although we sell a lot. All these little bullets just to kind of build the fact that we are a platform, not just a red line type program. And when I get into this section here, I walk through the history, because a lot of people that I'm finding from the solar industry don't understand the pathway that we went through, how we've evolved as a company. So I try to build that framework and how we're changing by creating a whole new model. And that's where we walk them through the economic model. So now that we built the framework of what the 70/30 is, and then in that PDF that you'll have once this is released, there's a link to the cost of goods model video. So if they want to get more in depth on it, then they can. Then I transitioned into what Powur Enterprise is. And the main thing I want to clarify with everybody today is what the difference is between the two. So if you look at the Enterprise versus the Enterprise Pro, they all have the same features. They can seat people to do administrative work. They can seat people to do lead generation work. Both Enterprise and Enterprise Pro can do that. What's different on Pro is that they can seat an actual seller, and with that, they're able to regulate what they want to pay that seller. So I'm going to walk down these slides here. You can see here in Enterprise, you can have your position, you can have support people, you can have lead generators, you can actually set defaults. So companies that are just straight lead gen companies, this is a great platform for them, where they can actually put a lead in the platform, set what they're willing to pay for that lead to be closed by a closer. And right now it's limited to tier 3 sellers, but I'll give you some breaking news for today. And we've successfully negotiated that we're going to make this available to tier 2 sellers as well. It's not ready for that yet, but that's what's going to happen. Is so you don't have to be a mentor to now be a closer. Any tier 2 and tier 3 will be able to be assigned leads from an enterprise. So if you've got a big lead gen company that wants to see, how can I scale this? Well, you got access to thousands of closers throughout the country, and you'll be able to see their data and all that kind of good stuff. So it's a recent win, so it's not in here yet, but just know that that's where we're coming. And then we break down what the rev share splits are if you leverage this as a lead generator. So an organization that comes in that's strictly lead gen, this is the ideal role for them. Now, when somebody wants to go to the next level, that's when it gets in Enterprise Pro. Enterprise is $175 a month versus the single seller, right, which is $49. And they can seat admin people for $25 per seat and lead generators for $25 per seat. So if I'm a lead gen company, I may have one of my funnels pumping into eventually an API feed that comes straight into Powur. And I may have a different funnel that comes into another lead generation position. So I'm trying to give you some visuals as far as how it would apply in cases like this. Or if it's you, if you're an existing seller in the platform, you might ask yourself, why would I consider going enterprise? If you're not doing any of these things, if you don't need admin support, or if you don't need a place to have your leads where you track those leads specifically, there's no reason. Your single seated seller license is perfectly fine. It's when you need administrative support, where people are going to be answering tickets and doing things for you, is really the ideal place to have that admin seat or a lead gen seat. Okay, I'm going to go to Pro, and then I'll run through these, then I'm going to get off screen share and really dive into Q&A. So the Pro version, this is the distinct difference. You have everything else that we just talked about on Enterprise is the same, but on Pro is where they can seat a seller, and now that seller is being paid directly through Powur, and it can go as low as zero, by the way. We have some people who are putting their sellers on salary, and they pay them either 0 or 20% of the margin. The range is all really up to the individual company, how they want to seat their sellers. And they get to see everything about that seller. They get to see the projects, they get to see the sales information. The payments are taken care of by Powur, so that a small company doesn't have to have a payroll department. They can set the offers that they want to automatically go right to their seated sellers. They can set their base compensation rate wherever they want that to be, and they can change what the requirements are. You know, today, when somebody comes into Powur, if they're new to solar, they have to work with a mentor on 3 projects, a tier 3 seller. If they're in solar, it's 1. Well, as a org, you can make that decision. You can make that up to 7, or you can make it 0. That's totally up to you, because it's your organization that is the one who's responsible for the contract flow that goes in there. Okay. And I'll go to the last couple slides here, then we'll go to Q&A. In the future, now we know, or we should know, that the official rollout of this is July at the convention. And between now and then, the co-branding is going to occur. And that's really designed for pros currently and Enterprise Pro, because we're partnering with an organization. API lead integration is actually next on the docket. So right now, the top priority that Powur is putting in place is to be able to get a pro from 70-30 split to an 80-20 split. And I'll talk about that during Q&A. The second priority is integrating API for lead generation. And that's going to be a beautiful, smooth transition from pretty much any of the main lead gen CRM programs that are out there, plus additional reporting, CRM capabilities, customized training. Some of you probably have seen our tier 1 training. Tier 2 is probably 3 to 4 weeks away. It's so many years ahead of, light years ahead of any training program I've seen in this industry. And our partners in this organization will be able to say, well, I don't want this module, I don't want this module. And they're going to be able to provide custom training to their teams based upon this integration that we're going through. The Pro is a $350 versus $175. The same seat costs for support and lead generators, but a seller is $50 a month. And then the last thing I cover on this, I walk through what our coverage map is and where we're going, and then just kind of recap. Where are we? Here's what the Enterprise can do. Here's what the Enterprise Pro can do. That was corrected in editing, by the way. So let me do that in real time here. That's what the Enterprise Pro can do. And notice the difference is really there. It's where they can seat sellers and they can design custom compensation plans. And then the last thing in the video, I wrap it up with all 3 side by side, because there's some people who went through this process and they say, you know, I was referred to Enterprise, but I really don't need those additional seats. Well, great. They come over and had a single seller license. So I'll try to cover all 3 of the bases, and hopefully that provides some clarity, but that's why I'm here today, to make sure I fill in those gaps. So I'm going to stop share for now. I can go back to that if we need it. All right, let's start with that.
Thank you, Charles. I'd like to do maybe a little, just kind of recap. This Enterprise Pro on a seated seller can take an extra percentage. Did we cover that?
So yeah, in an Enterprise Pro, you can completely regulate what you are paying that individual, or what Powur is paying that individual, on any leads that come in through the lead gen portal. If that seated seller generates their own contract, you can also throttle what you're willing to have that pay at. But in order to maintain the integrity of the Powur platform, they can take 10% of that. So the seller, as a seated seller on a self-generated deal, can get 60 to 70% of the revenue. Okay. Breaking news, and I'll come back to that in a second. Breaking news is that soon with volume commitments and achieved volume, I should say, the pro is going to have ability to go from 70-30 to 80-20. They will not be able to pay the seated seller more than our current rev share, which is 70%. But that means now they'll have not just a 10% margin, they'll have 20% margin on those type deals when we implement that tiered system that they can achieve. Okay. Any follow up on that, JB?
No, I think that makes sense.
I do have a quick question, Charles, about that.
Sure.
You mentioned that you could potentially pay someone in your organization 60%, right?
Yep.
What would, to prevent somebody who's selling, let's say they're selling for an organization, they're getting the 60% on their own self-gens, and they're doing mostly the self-genning themselves, and they go, I feel like I want to get the 70%, and to where they could just break off and sign up Powur directly to get the 70%. Like, what's to prevent that or to encourage it from not happening?
It's a great point, and one that was taken into consideration at the very beginning, and that is an individual who is seated cannot take another position unless it's directly to the same person who enrolled him or her, unless they leave the platform entirely for 6 months and rejoin fresh. But the reality is, if I'm an organization and I've got my sellers seated, if I want to give them a pathway, right? I want to give them a pathway to freedom, to be able to take their own position. So I'll say, whatever that parameter is that I as a org want to set, when you achieve that, then you're going to go from 60% to 70%. And there's no reason why they would ever leave. And the beauty for an org is this is going to protect the organization by keeping them in the platform. Right now, as we all know, once people start to see redline programs out there without the transparency, they start to go, I'm going to go find my own redline program. And then all the work that was done by that organization to train that person up and get them successful is basically wasted because they go and work with some other company on a red line. With Powur, we are that ecosystem that we're creating. And the intent is to make sure we protect the org, but also make sure that we're feeding a platform that's treating the seller fairly, right? But as an org, I should also be smart to say, hey, when you achieve X, I'm going to let you just go ahead and get 70%. I can throttle that by individual. I can pay one person 60% and the other person 70% as they're seated sellers in the platform. Okay. Does that make sense, Jared?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It does. I still see there's going to be a little bit of conflict there, and it'll end up working itself out. And like you said, as an organization, if you have a producer and you're throttling him at 60 and he's like, hey, I should be getting 70. You probably want to pay him 70 if he's producing, keep him happy, keep him on the team.
Yeah. And by the way, he can also allow, we're using he non-gender intended here, of course, but he can also allow, or the org can also allow that person to just unseat and take their own position. It'll be direct to them as well. So that's the flexibility is already built into the platform to do that.
Cool.
Right. Just a few more recap things and we'll open it up. Can a enterprise change the tier 2 status or tier 3 status or the requirements on anyone that comes in under them, or just a seated seller? What does that look like?
Yeah, the answer is yes, but just to the seated seller. So an unseated seller follows all the same existing rules that are in the platform. It's only to a seated seller.
Can an enterprise assign a lead to anyone that joins under them, or just a seated seller, or do they have to be tier 3 mentor?
Great question. So currently they can assign it to a seated seller. They can automatically assign it to a seated seller if they want to do it that way. They can assign it to a seated seller or a tier 3, what we know as a mentor. But coming out in the next iteration is going to be where you can actually assign it to a tier 2. And one of the reasons that I lobbied for that, just so that we're all clear, is when we release this training that you're going to see to be a tier 2 seller, we want to have a reward. And the reward is that you don't have to become a mentor, because not everybody wants to become a mentor. But once you complete that course, we know you know your things because it's comprehensive. So for that, now you're able to be chosen as a closer from any of the organizations that are generating leads and looking for people to close them, not just a mentor. It's a big win for tier twos particularly.
Yeah, so if y'all get to tier 2, take the certification, you potentially will be getting some leads from enterprises that need to give out leads.
Correct.
Okay, great. And then, so tier 1 enterprise, $175 a month. There's an owner role, a support role, a lead generator role. The support role is $25 a month. The lead generator role is $25 a month. And then tier 2 enterprise, which is all still beta, $350 a month. A seated seller is $50 a month. You still have the support role, the lead gen role. You can take an additional 1 to 10% off of a seated seller self-gen. And eventually we'll have white label, API, CRM, more features to come towards the second half of the year. Is that kind of a fair understanding of it? Oh, I think, let me get you unmuted there, Charles. Sorry, 1 second. Oh boy, give me 1 minute.
All right, thank you. I had to cough, so I muted myself and then I couldn't get off of mute. My apologies. One of the benefits of traveling is I picked up a tickle cough. I saw a couple other questions came through here, and I just want to make sure we clear those up. And it had to do with white labeling, and we can't call it white labeling. We call it co-branding, and that's because Powur is the general contractor. Powur's name will need to be on the installation agreements and all the finance, whatever documents are being released, proposals, etc. But in the iterations that are coming up, it's not there yet. They'll have the ability to have their own custom logo on all of the documents that we have. So it's co-branded is where it's heading. It's not there yet because we are in beta.
It'd be like someone's company name and then authorized seller of Powur.
Yeah, powered by Powur.com, something like that. I don't know the exact words yet. And that's why what we're really looking for in the whole theme here is companies, orgs who understand we are in beta and understand that they're going to help us make the best program in the industry. And it will be. We just get off of a couple of back-to-back meetings, and companies are already starting to hear about this, and we haven't even announced it yet until July. I will tell you that I personally have signed up 5 solar companies, and how is we are creating an ecosystem. And it's not like most companies are looking to hire EPCs or in our case, we call them labor partners. And some people in the industry don't like that. They just don't want to be a labor partner for somebody. They want to run their own company. But they also look at Powur and go, man, you got better buying power than we have. You've got better financing products than we have. I want some of that. Well, those are the perfect candidates for what we do, because now they get the benefit of leveraging everything in our flywheel and getting projects assigned to them over and above. They get their own installs. If they sell a project, they leverage everything. Those installs go directly to them. Right now it's manual, but in version 2 of this, it's going to be an automatic where it goes assigned to them. And then they can tell us when, and when they don't want projects from us as well that are overflowing. That's partnership. That's ecosystem. I had one company who's kind of looking and said, well, why would I do a 70-30 split with Powur? They actually will qualify for the 80-20, by the way, because they're doing 60 deals a month. Why would I do that? And I just walked through a couple of equipment options. And one of them was the RECs. They were paying 72 cents a watt for the RECs. What are we paying? 60 cents. It just made him shake his head. What? How are you getting such low pricing? I'm spending $7 million a year. Well, we're spending a little bit more than that. And that's the benefit of the flywheel effect. As we get better pricing, everybody gets the benefit of it.
And oftentimes their red line, quote unquote, is not as low as our cost of goods. So if we're at $1.65 on a system in Texas, they may have $1.95 in Texas, or 100% above that. So you really have to understand the cost of goods model to compare a red line model, I think.
And let me address that, because I have had numerous conversations with solar companies and sales orgs over the past few weeks. And I'll just be candid. Most of these red line programs are not being truthful. They're not being transparent to their dealers. And how I say that is there's oftentimes a markup on the equipment cost. Yeah, that's built into their red line. But where it really comes in is on the financing, the dealer fees. Most everyone that I've seen out there is getting anywhere from 2 to 5 percentage point markup or rebates that are going directly to them, to the person who owns the red line, the company, not to the seller, not to the homeowner. It's back in their pocket in the form of margin. Some cases that's $2,000 on an average system, $2,000. Well, that means your red line isn't really 210. Your red line really is 230 because everything that they do, they mark up. They mark up the panel upgrades. You mark up everything with margin. That's the thing, to just have clarity that a red line isn't a red line. And a red line is only one form of compensation. That's the commission. That doesn't cover the fact that there's 3 other forms of compensation with Powur: rev share, mentorship income, because they can qualify for that as well, and equity. The red line programs out there have 1 stream of income. We have 4. So there's no comparison. Red line is an outdated model. Now, if you're not comfortable with that language, don't focus on solar companies until you are. And just really focus on companies that are looking for adding layers of revenue to what they're currently doing. Like roofers has been a really hot commodity, right? Where roofers can put their door knockers in the platform as a seeded lead gen, and they can pay that lead gen whatever they want to pay them based upon the deal getting sold and installed. They don't have to sell solar. They're just in lead gen. And guess what they can do with that lead? Their admin person can tag right now a tier 3 seller and soon a tier 2 seller. So if you've built a relationship with somebody, you're not a mentor in the platform, you can say, hey, I'll close your leads. You can tag me on all the deals that your door knockers are out there putting in the platform, and I'll close them for you. And then they can also determine what they want to pay that closer. It can be 30% of the deal, 40%, 50%. It's up to them.
Got it. Another question in the chat here. Can a seated seller within Pro recruit?
Yes.
And then seated sellers can only be level 1 to the enterprise at this time?
Correct. And what that would mean is if anybody was recruited in a position below a seated seller, they have to have a single user license, or they have to become an enterprise. So we'll look at those things as this grows to see what kind of modifications we should make. That's why it's beta. That's why we're here gathering data. We were just on a call with someone who's got a bunch of sales room, and we want that feedback. We want to make sure that we're trying to cover as much of the challenges that orgs and teams and companies are facing in this industry as we possibly can through our software.
Someone asked.
So, I was going to say, so if the seated seller, this is going a little deep, right? So if the seated seller can recruit, would the recruit be paying the $50 to Powur, or would they be paying it to the organization that the seated seller is within, that they have to cover?
Yeah, it would be paid by the individual to Powur, just like all of us do today.
Okay, and it wouldn't be considered a seated seller to that organization.
Correct. It'd just be a seller, just like us.
And then can you convert ones to others, or
Sure.
no?
Yep,
Yes.
we can.
That was the next question. Someone said if someone joined an enterprise as a consultant and later they want them to call on leads like a lead generator, how do you pay or change the title of that person per se?
It's all done within the platform. You can seat that individual. I have someone who is they have to be in your first generation. You can't go and seat somebody who's not in your first generation into your enterprise license. That just doesn't allow that. They have to be your first generation. So I have somebody who is now a seated seller in my enterprise who's also an individual seller. So they can sell their projects however they want, and I'm assigning leads to them to close at a different percentage. That's all allowable on the platform.
Chris,
and we're getting into weeds. So anybody who doesn't know this, don't get concerned. Just know that it's easier just to start using it or having somebody use it. And I'll talk about, I saw some questions about training. There's training that's being put together. This is beta. And one thing I didn't want to do is start putting a whole lot of training together that wasn't evergreen, right? Because everything's changing and the visuals and graphics and all that's morphing. So probably in the next 30 days, you're going to see a pretty good phase 1 training coming out specifically for how enterprise works in the back office, et cetera.
Chris is asking, and I think I know this one, but if I have a lead gen wanting to join, should I sign them up as a lead gen in my enterprise, or should they join enterprise and just enter leads?
That depends on how you want to manage it. It
Right.
depends on whether you want to. Here's like what I've done. I brought somebody in as a lead gen in the platform, and I know that they're going to be seeing this. They're going to see that this actually works, and eventually they'll become their own enterprise, and that's perfectly fine. Fine career pathways, right? That should be our. Look at this. Let's get the least passive resistance, particularly on lead gen companies, because they all have the way that they do business, right? That's a great, just kind of flip the script on them. Hey, if your leads are good, I'll pay you $2,000 per install. And I'll pay you half of that at milestone 1, which means typically 48 to 72 hours after we do site survey. And then I'll pay the balance of that. Powur will pay the balance of that at M2 after the glass is on the roof. Flip the script. If they won't do that, then their lead quality probably isn't what they're claiming it to be. Reality. And I hope you're getting the questions, because I'm just trying to stay focused on y'all and not
Yep.
read the questions. Okay.
I think this was covered, and Tony's asking if a seated seller is in an organization, they can't unseat themselves, right? So at a certain point, if a seated seller says, I don't want to be seated, I want to be unseated. If, like, I'm assuming they would tell the enterprise that, the enterprise may say no. What happens then? Would they go to Powur and say, hey, I want to be unseated, or what do you foresee?
I guess we would have to look at the why, right? And why would somebody want to be unseated if the enterprise isn't cooperating with giving them 70% of the commission? Then we would intervene and ask and try to arbitrate. But I don't think we're going to say, well, nope, you can't do that. Well, I think we more or less really have to trust our partner's judgment. And if they won't unseat somebody, there's typically going to be a good reason for that.
Yeah.
We'll ask.
Tony, I don't think that's any different than all these dealers from Freedom, Palmetto, Titan, all of these different dealers. They all have contracts and ICAs with their consultants. I mean, I don't really see it as much different there. And likely our offering is better than what they're getting somewhere else.
Yeah, most have exclusivity terms with their, what we'll call a seated seller that can't go anywhere else. And we don't have exclusivity per se. We just have, you dance with the one who brung you, right? If that person seated you, then if you want to leave that position entirely and just walk away, then wait 6 months or negotiate with your enterprise owner and get yourself to 70%, or get yourself the ability to have your own seat. Unseated, get your own license. That's all. I don't think these are going to be issues that we're going to see creating many distractions for us personally.
Right. Some basic questions here. Is there a training path for a seated lead generator? Travis asked. I would definitely say yes. The enterprise is responsible for working with that individual, building them up, getting them to take the certifications, training, promoting them. It's no different than an ambassador going into a consultant role and so on. A lot of these questions, in my opinion, are just not too much different than what we already have or what's already out there, just to be frank.
And that's why we're here, to dispel some of the myths or concerns that might exist. That's why we're doing this.
And then Brian says, if a company has a book of business, can they assign leads and tag mentors to close them? Essentially join the platform to sell to their contacts without even having to sell themselves. I would say most definitely, Brian, that exists with the standard version of Powur right now. Many people do that already. They'll be able to have more options with enterprise. You have to have conversations with those mentors. Do they expect utility bills? Do they expect their calendar booked? Who's doing the follow-up? That's why we created an asset with all the mentors with contact information to bridge that relationship. So you do need to make sure the relationship and understanding expectations, communications in place if someone is just going to wildly assign leads to mentors.
Yep. Yeah, to the point that you just made, the difference between the single seller license and the enterprise licenses. On the enterprise, you can throttle what you're willing to pay the closer on the deal. You can take that number down or you can take it up to the max that we currently receive. Whereas in the single seller license, we can tag a mentor, but we can't tag a tier 2, and we can't regulate what we want to pay out on it. That's where enterprise comes in. That's the software.
And Tony, I think we need to have a sidebar with you. It seems to be a little misunderstanding. With the seated seller, the enterprise can only take up to 10% more on self-gen. So it's still 70-30 on seated unless the enterprise wants to take up to 10% more. If the enterprise assigns them a lead, then they can define the split. But seateds can only take up to 10% more. So if the seated brings in a recruit, the recruit will be 70-30 split, just like the model works right now. But on seated, the enterprise could take up to 10% more on self-gen is the only difference.
And what's the rationale for that, right? That's oftentimes, why is what people need to understand. Why is they're generally providing that seated seller more value than just being on a regular license program. They're providing them sometimes, what we're just talking to is providing with Airbnbs to go to, where they're going out and doing their door knocking. And so even on their self-gens, they're getting the self-gens because they get the benefit of having housing provided for them. So of course, we would want to allow that enterprise to regulate what they're willing to share on the success. That's all.
If we bring an enterprise on board, are they considered a direct recruit? Will we make the 20% from rev share? Yes.
Absolutely. Now listen, when we go to 80-20, just laying it out there. When we go to 80-20, that is going to change what our numbers are going to look like overriding. But I've looked at the economics. I said, okay, if somebody's at, let's just say the number is 50 deals a month, and I'm making less override on that. On a company doing 50 deals a month, I would be making $350,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right.
You
Okay.
want-
If I make $250,000, if I make $250,000 a year, am I going to cry about that?
You want to have an enterprise under you that gets to 80-20
Amen.
because they're hitting volume results, ladies and gentlemen. You want that problem. Trust me.
Yep.
That is not a problem. And then just to clarify, you know how currently the rev share comes from the 30%. It's a split, right? It's 50% of that is rev shared out. If it goes up to the 80-20, or is it split of the 20? Is it still broken down? But now it's coming from the 10% rather than the 15. Is that all?
Keep it simple. Sure.
Okay.
Let's see, Chris Brunasso. So if I seat a lead gen in my enterprise, can they give leads to any tier 2 or 3 seller and assign what % commission? I don't know if a lead generator has that ability.
Right. That's really done by the admin on the enterprise. The admin is the one who, or the owner can do that. The lead generator doesn't have the ability to set that. The admin has to regulate that. And to your question, the admin can do everything you just said, but not the lead generator.
The lead generator role, the enterprise has to say, if you close a deal, I'm paying you X amount, 900, 1200, 1600, and that's it, right? They have to put in a lead. It goes up to the enterprise. The enterprise can then sell it or assign it, but the lead generator just gets paid the set amount.
Whatever they negotiate in the front end, and that can be adjusted by deal, but typically it's here's what you're going to get paid as a lead generator, and then we assign it accordingly to a closer, tier 2 or tier 3 in the near future. Tier 3 currently, tier 2 in the near future.
Tony asked, if I'm a seated seller and I'm making 50-50, which I don't know why you would be making 50-50, Tony, and recruit my friend as an individual seller and they're on 70-30 from Powur, I'd obviously want to be unseated. Yeah, Tony, let's sidebar with your leadership there. I think we need to watch the videos and get on the same page. Unless I'm missing something, Charles.
Yeah, so I think it's important to know, Tony, to the question, the only way that seated seller is getting 50% is if the lead was provided by the enterprise owner. If that seated seller is doing their own lead generation, that's called a self-gen. The maximum amount that the enterprise can take is 10%. So the seller would get 60%. And to the question that came up earlier, give your people a pathway. This is the coaching that I give any org. Give your people a pathway to freedom of having their own license. when they hit a certain milestone, then pop them over and unseat them, let them pay their own 49, 50 bucks a month, and they get the 70/30. Or maybe they get a really good organization. I've had an enterprise recruit an enterprise, and it was somebody who started the selling and then they became an enterprise. That's a great situation to have. Right?
Will the 80-20 split be exclusive to Enterprise Pro? I would imagine so.
Currently, yes.
Yeah.
Because that's an organization that's seeding sellers.
Yeah.
And
You're
that's the
achieving
reason,
those
that's
results.
the reason for the spread.
You're
I like
achieving
this next question.
those results. You definitely would want to be pro anyways.
Yeah, if you're running a real business where you have people selling out of your license, Enterprise Pro is the way to go. We have a calculator that we're piloting right now that will soon be something web enabled that people go in and be able to go in and compare it to a red line. But again, when that comes out, I just want to tell you, that's only one of the income streams. You've got to make sure you understand that people in red line programs don't get rev share, don't get stock options, don't have the opportunity to get leads submitting to them. In our platform, they do. What was the other question, Jared?
Lily said, do you have to be enterprise user to bring in an enterprise client? And that's
No.
definitely no.
No.
Yeah. For your solar company clients, do they change their name to Powur sellers or retain their name?
They can we respect their company names. They come in individually and then they set up their organization. I can show you one if we want to see it, but it's super simple. They just go in and set up their company name in the platform so we know that's who they are. But we also recognize either whoever their key point of contact is, so we know who we're reaching. That's also provided to Powur through the platform.
Janice asked, can you clarify what that percentage offer looks like? How is it negotiated on the front end conversation or email? I'm not sure if she's referring to
Lead gen.
heated seller or lead gen.
So if it's referring to lead gen, it's really what you negotiate on the front end and how much value that person is bringing to the table. Some of the companies out there that I see out there have lead generators, let's just say in roofing, they're paying the door knockers to go to every door that looks viable for their roofing projects, but they're skipping all the ones that aren't. So how about just paying them, since you're already paying them hourly, pay them 10% of any of those leads that they submit that convert to a contract. You set the parameters based upon what value you feel they're bringing. And then you can then say, I'll pay the seller X% and keep the balance. And it's really that flexible. So it's all up to the enterprise and Enterprise Pro to make those decisions.
Right. So she said, when you assign a seller, if you
Okay.
tag someone, it's more of a conversation, not an email offer.
Yeah, it actually comes out in the form of an offer that they have to accept or decline, or they can actually renegotiate. They can say, no, I'm not going to do it for 30%, but I'll do it for 40, or I'll do it for 50. And it's continued to improve. I've put about 10 of them out there this week that every one of them was accepted because I just did 50-50. I'm not going to be greedy. I'm just treat it just like we have in our mentor program.
And I would encourage everyone to, I upgraded my personal account to the 175, test it out for a month, get a feel for it, would be my recommendation if you can spare the few bucks.
If you're thinking about doing any of these things that we're talking about, right? If you're thinking about having an admin person support you. And for those who have been doing this for a while, you find yourself in career pathways where you get, Jonathan's faced it as well. He and I have talked about it. Get to the point where I'm overwhelmed. I can't even take mentor deals anymore. I can't do this. What a great problem to have. Well, I just found a whole different level of freedom by putting 2 team managers in place who are answering my tickets, who are communicating with the new leads that I'm tagged on as a mentor and setting us up for success. So that I don't have to do that. I didn't want them to have access into my wallet and all the financing and all that type of stuff. I just wanted them to have visibility of projects, to be able to submit the proposal, to be able to have a conversation with the seller. That's a beautiful piece of freedom for $50 or $25 a month for a person on your platform to do that. So that's when you consider. If you're not there, don't worry about it. Maybe you'll get there. Maybe you never need to be there. Maybe you're happy with what you're doing. Purpose of today is to show you the flexibility and show you now you have another type of audience you can refer to use the platform. And you can spend your time managing individual sellers, which I love doing, or you can spend your time being an account manager for an org who may do more in 1 month than your average seller does an entire year.
Hey, Charles, someone had another question where they asked, will Enterprise or Enterprise Pro have the ability to assign an installer in the future?
In the future, yeah. Yeah. In fact, what I'll tell you, I think the success that I saw with a couple of existing installers, not necessarily in Powur, but companies that I met with when I was on my tour, is that's what they wanted. They wanted a platform that can not only leverage our cost of goods and financing, but get the installs that they sell and leverage it in markets that they don't currently have the ability to sell. And that's a huge upsell, benefit, I should say, not upsell, to those types of companies that are selling successfully in one market and they got one limited red line program, or maybe they're direct to a lender. And this particular one was direct to GoodLeap. And there's only 200 a little over 200 solar companies on GoodLeap's program out of 14,000. And that tells you they screen them very carefully. This one was there, but saw the value in the 36-month flex pay because his company didn't qualify for that. Saw the value in the fact that the way the whole call structure goes, saw the value in the lower dealer fees and the cost of goods. That's the difference.
All right, one or two more, and then I'll go to McKaylin here. Jason asked, how do new team members get paid if what they're doing is strictly administrative? If they're in the admin support role, that's up to the enterprise to pay that individual. If they're in the lead gen role, they got to generate leads. If they're a consultant or seller, they got to sell deals. Pretty straightforward.
There may come a time as we learn more and more about this that we provide that vehicle for it to be covered out of their pool of funds. There may come that time.
Nice.
We'll see.
Very cool. Scott asked, what's the benefit of setting up a lead generation company in enterprise versus just as a direct consultant? And I think what we said is coming soon is you can assign a lead to any tier 2 or tier 3 seller at a defined split. Yep. With the traditional consultant model, Scott, you can only assign a tier 3 mentor and you can only do 50-50.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, good. And then McKaylin, let's see if you can unmute to ask your question here.
So I'm wondering if a glossary would be a good idea for all of these words and terms that you guys are throwing.
I saw you holding your head like this going, overload. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm so familiar with them. You're right. So if anybody wants to take lead on that, I'll be happy to have it built into some of our training. So if you want to nominate yourself, feel free, and I'll give you definitions.
Oh, all right, I will. Yeah.
Or Jonathan knows how to put a 6-pager together for the Leadership Advisory Council.
Tom, you can get with Tom and Advisory Council and do that, like defining.
That's Tom. You got it. Good idea.
Thank you, McKaylin. Jason Reedy, let's go ahead and.
Hey, now, Tom.
Where did you go, Jason? Can you unmute yourself? Or I'm not sure if you had a question there.
It was in regard to the installation partner. Like me, I own a roofing company. I also want to on that project.
I can't.
I didn't hear a word he said.
Jason, we can't hear you. Your internet's very unstable. If you can get to a better place.
Or type it in if you, I know it sounds like a long question, but you could type it in if you wanted to.
Let me, no. Jason, he did text a question. Does that go for other trades like roofing as well? I own my own roofing company. I would like to assign myself the roof.
Yeah, it does. However, and I'll tell you, there's a lot that's taken place. Roofing is growing very quickly. You know, you got Irwin who went into the roofing group, and you got other people who are coming in roofing. I think they're hiring 3 more people in roofing. Mm-hmm. So we're basically giving preferential treatment to enterprise pro companies who come on the platform to sell solar and sell roofing and leveraging the platform. We're giving priority onboarding to them because they're part of the ecosystem. That's not to take away from any roofer who's not part of the ecosystem, but I mean, right, if somebody's part of that whole ecosystem, we want to give them preferential treatment. So just know that. And if you've got somebody who signed up as a pro and they've been trying to get in as a roofer and they haven't had luck, let me know. I'll push a button that says, hey, here's who they are. We need to get them vetted. They still have to be vetted, still have to be approved. It's not an automatic, just like any existing solar installer has to be vetted. They can't just automatically get in.
Right.
Now, I have a hard stop of mine for a team Zoom regarding this very same topic. But I hope that it's a lot of content. I know for some it might be confusing, but here's the thing. Focus on small organizations, get used to some of the language that we're watching. Watch the videos in Powur, the resources, the knowledge base, the new video that comes out soon. I will go in rotation to as many of these types of meetings. So if we need to come back and do a follow-up, I know Jonathan's got a pretty heavy calendar booked out, but you'll have to know it enough to present to all of the tier, what we'll call basic enterprise. When it gets in Enterprise Pro, that's by application only, and that's where I will get involved. There's just simply not enough bandwidth to do every three-way call, if you will. But Enterprise Pro, if you get them to submit the application, that's the next step, is I will set up a time to meet with them, and whoever referred them can be certainly included in that meeting. And it's not an interview, it's a question session, Q&A session. Okay. They have to have watched the video. They had to have seen the PDF and fully understand what the conversation is going to be about. And that's just the way we've got to do it. Until more and more leaders get comfortable with the language and can do it, I'll take as much lead as I can. I'm gonna let these people know I'm coming over. Make sense?
Very good. We look forward to doing this again. Appreciate your time. There's a lot to understand here. And I know I've watched your 15-minute video about 2 to 3 times myself. But we appreciate it, Charles. This is going to be a game changer for Powur.
It is. This to me is between virtual site survey and enterprise. These two can take this company to, I don't even know the limitations, but certainly a way to 10x us, maybe not in 2022, but put us on a path to 10x just by these two significant changes.
Awesome, Charles.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Catch you later.
Bye now.
All right, I want to just answer 1 or 2 more questions. If you'd like to speak, feel free to raise your hand. If you need to hop off, no worries. It's at 11 Pacific right now. Thank you so much for being here. This will be put on YouTube as well. So I know Hugh asked, if a roofing company signs up as a seller under a partner's name and wishes to upgrade to a newly created LLC, will it only have to upgrade to Enterprise and set up a new e-wallet? So just so y'all know, like, an individual seller or consultant like we all are can go into their e-wallet today and have Powur pay their S Corp, LLC, EIN number. Like I have JB Energy and S Corp, so Powur pays my company. If I upgrade to Enterprise, then I can be in Enterprise under the company name of JB Energy. So it's really not that much different. Anyone can have their company paid by Powur today. You just have to upload a W-9 and change your e-wallet to get your company paid. The Enterprise is the same. You can just have your company name recognized in Powur and have the benefits of Enterprise.
Bobby Smith has a quick thought.
Bobby, let's, if you'd like to chime in here, Bobby, give us some closing thoughts. We'd love to hear from you.
Hey, everybody. It's good to see everybody. It's been a little crazy. I just got off a 10-day tour. First of all, again, thanks to Charles for everything he's doing behind the scenes. He doesn't get paid for this. Thanks always to Mr. Brunasso, who just elevates our company to a new place. The quality of deals that are coming out of California is just off the hook. Real quick, Jonathan, this is just food for thought, and I don't want to butt my head in here. But what I couldn't help thinking is, remember, folks, I've been very fortunate in my enrollment efforts in Powur as to individual sellers, right? As you know, I've sponsored about 1 person a day for the last 5 years, right? So the system works. And what the system that I use, as most of you know, is a well-created email followed by some videos to watch and perhaps a press release to read. And I never get on the phone with anybody until they've done those things because it takes too much time. So and this is up to Mr. Brunasso, I'm just posing this thought, Jonathan. Jonathan. Maybe it's time, if we don't already have it, you're usually ahead of the game, ahead of me, is to craft an email that you think would be cool. Maybe there's a slight different version for a roofer, whatever it may be. And I would encourage all of you, per the request for even a terms, an understanding of better terms, which is a great point and great idea. If it were me, I would be sending people in. I wouldn't get too far off to the side with enterprise. I would continue down your basic course. That's 80% of your core business right now. And then if you are going to explore enterprise, I would just submit to you that, Jonathan, maybe it's time, and we work with Charles, we get an email to send with someone, a video to watch, maybe a couple press releases to read. And then when they've done that, you might schedule them with a call or a Zoom with Mr. Brunasso, whoever it might be. If you're on the phone pitching and trying to explain this, and you're going to get caught because you don't know everything you're talking about. So I just think it's time to think about, and again, I don't really work in the enterprise division. It's really Jonathan Budd and Charles. I'm busy with the 600 reps that are joining our platform this month outside of enterprise, but that could be the way to go. So JB, I don't know, you may already even have that. Maybe noodle up with Charles, talk to me, get something that would make a lot of sense. So it's kind of one-stop shopping and everybody could use it.
Great idea, Bobby.
Yeah.
I think just like the existing model, people do have scripts to send depending on the person. I have spoke to Cami regarding making a resource page for real estate and a resource page for roofers, hopefully to have those in the coming months. And that could include the script, the email, the video to send, the graphics, the how to work with your database, and just full on resource pages for those two categories.
And I would say in closing, in the interim, because Cammie's got a few things on her plate as well. I think she was in 36 hours of meetings this week. I think she had 4 hours that weren't in meetings. Jonathan, maybe we noodle up with Charles and you may already have it with an introductory email. So it's real simple. It's cut and paste. You don't have to have a creative bone in your body. You could use it on LinkedIn. You could use it on Facebook. You could use it with a slight adjustment for roofers or real estate, whoever it may be. So just food for thought. Again, thank all of you for everything that you're doing. You're amazing. Thank again, Jonathan. Jonathan, we got to catch up. I miss you, buddy. We haven't taken a walk on the beach and it seems like forever. So hi, everybody. Peace. Much love. Jonathan will think about that and maybe we'll talk about real simple stuff, just introduction. I always believe in a 1, 2, 3, connect, engage, give them something to review. Don't waste an hour pitching, give them something to watch, something to read. And then then they're sending you their questions. Hey, if you have any questions about this, shoot them over to me. Then you know what you're walking into. Walk into a meeting where you know what's going to happen instead of getting surprised every 12 seconds, right? And that's because I'm so mentally delinquent. It helps me do what I do. So I don't have to have many creative thoughts. I can systemize it. And that seems to work well. Okay. I got to jump into another meeting and see my wife, who I haven't seen in a while. So much love. See you all in Dallas. I hope you're all planning Dallas right now and getting that in your schedules. Okay. Peace.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks, Bobby.
And one of the best people that does what Bobby's referring to is Kiara Smithy. And she will be on the Sales Tuesday, 12 p.m. Pacific here shortly, training on a different topic, but she is one of the best at the communication, the scripts, the emails to them. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording. We'll get this uploaded to YouTube. I'll hang out for a few more minutes here with y'all. But thank you again so much for being here. Thanks for the assistant leadership, Jarrett.
You got it, brother.
Appreciate it, guys. This is just the beginning. I'm trying to wrap my head around it myself. There's so much exciting things to learn and know and understand with enterprise, but work with your leadership, work with the assets, resources, watch the training multiple times, and y'all have a great week. Thank you so much.